Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. So last weekend we have 4 wide releases and they are the war movie 1917, Just Mercy, Like a Boss, and the thriller Underwater. Let's see how those movies did at the box office. Alright, so let's jump right in. So coming in at number 1 is Sam Mendes' World War I war movie, 1917. This is a movie that is very well reviewed at 98% on the Tomato Meter and A- cinema score, and it won the Golden Globes for Best Picture in the drama category, I believe. And in its wide release, the movie pulled in about 36.5 million. This is its third weekend. It was released limited 2 weeks back, to qualify for the award season, and now it's getting its wide release, and in its wide release it pulled in 36.5 million, which is actually pretty good. I had the movie opening somewhere between 20 to 25 million because hey, it is a war movie about World War I, and those movies are not in vogue right now, but Sam Mendes is one of those well-regarded directors who could pull in the crowds just by his name alone. And let's look overseas. Overseas, it put in an additional 23.8 million for a worldwide total of 63 million. So driven by all the positive word of mouth and its award win, we could see this movie riding the award wave toward a huge box office. Alright, let's move on to number 2, which is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Was the number 1 movie last weekend, but it got, pushed back by 1917, and in its 4th weekend, it dropped about, 56% to put in about 15.1 million. Domestic take right now for Rise of the Skywalker is 478 million, and 511 million overseas for a worldwide total of 989 million. I think it's going to cross the 1 billion mark. So while it might not be as profitable as the previous one, is it The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi? One of those, right? It might not be as profitable as the previous one. It's still going to be, plenty profitable. Alright, number 3 is Jumanji, The Next Level. Another successful Jumanji movie for Dwayne Johnson, right? In its 5th weekend, it pulled in 14 million, drop off about 47% from the previous weekend. And let's see, the domestic gross is so far is 257 million, and overseas it is an additional 414 million for an additional 671 million. So it's Jumanji is doing very well. Well reviewed, 71% on the Tomato Meter, A- cinema score, 60 million opening. So yeah, the sequel is outperforming the first movie. Alright, number 4 is one of the new releases last weekend, which is Like a Boss. It stars Tiffany Haddish, Rose Byrne, and Selma Hayek about a pair of aspiring cosmetic maker, I guess, who fell on hard times and had to sell their company to, Selma Hayek. And, they found out that she's ripping them off. Reviews wise, it's not that great, 19% on the Tomato Meter, but a B cinema score. So there's a disconnect between the professional critic and the audience there. This is a movie that I say could probably open somewhere in the 10 to 15 million range, and it did at the lower end of my projection. So it opened, a purported 10 million for its opening weekend, and it kind of opened limited overseas, 148k overseas for, it hasn't really didn't move the needle much, so it's still around 10 million worldwide total. But as you know, comedies don't usually travel well overseas, so I think most of the growth are going to be, this side of the pond. But with such poor reviews, I don't expect Like a Boss to have much legs in theaters. Alright, number 5 is Just Mercy, another movie that was released limited for, its award qualification, and it's expanding right now. This is a movie that I say could probably open, around 5 million in its wide release, and it did way better. It did almost double that. 10 million in its wide release. So yeah, I was off there. This movie stars Michael B. Jordan, Jamie Foxx, and Brie Larson. Jordan stars as a Harvard law graduate who went to Alabama after graduation to fight for inmates on death row, and Jamie Foxx is one of those inmates. So yeah, very good opening for a movie that I thought wouldn't open well. Let's see how will this movie do in its 2nd weekend in wide release. Alright, number 6 is Little Woman. This is the, this drama that's adapted from Louisa May Alcott's novel of the same name, stars Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson, Florence Pugh, Eliza Scallon, directed by Greta Gerwig. It's getting some buzz or snubs, should I say, at the award season, especially the Oscars, right? But in its third weekend, Little Woman pulled in about 7.7 million, drop off about 43% from the previous weekend, and domestic gross so far is 74 million. So it's doing pretty well. The budget for this movie is 40 million, so 70 million domestically is very good. An additional 33.2 million overseas for a worldwide total of 107 million. Yeah, so The Little Woman is a movie that I said could probably open to about 8 million, but it had a 16, nearly 17 million open, so that means there is a demand for this movie, and it continues to do well. It's very well reviewed at 97% on the tomato meter and A- cinema score, so expect this movie to stay in theaters for a while. Looks like it's going to close out somewhere in the high 90s maybe, if not cross the 100 million mark. Alright, let's move on to number 7, one of the new releases last weekend, and that is the thriller Underwater, starring Kristen Stewart. She stars as a scientist who is in a underwater lab, right, and an earthquake knocked everything to disable the lab, right, and they have to escape from this lab, right. So this is a movie that could probably open somewhere in the 5 to 8 million range, and it just opened right there. It pulled in about 7 million in its opening weekend, and like I pointed out, Kristen Stewart is not a huge draw at the box office, and she might be box office poison as well, because people might be actively avoiding her movies for some reason or another. Alright, let's move on to number 8, which is Frozen 2. It pulled in 5.7 million in its 8th weekend, drop off about 51% from the previous weekend. And let's see, domestic gross so far is 459 million, 460 to round it up, and additional 913 million for a worldwide total of 1.37 billion. So it's doing very well. I think it beat out the first movie. The first movie pulled in 1.2 billion, and this one already surpassed it. Alright, number 9 is the comedy thriller Knives Out. It pulled in 5.7 million in its 7th weekend, drop off of about 36%. Domestic gross is 139 million, and additional 126 million for a worldwide total of 265 million. This is a movie that stars Daniel Craig as a detective who's investigating the murder or death of the patriarch of a quirky family, and because how well it's doing here and overseas, they have already greenlit the sequel to Knives Out, so expect Knives Out 2 sometimes down the road. Alright, let's close out the top 10 with Spies in Disguise, the latest animation from Sony, about a top, international man of mystery, top spy, who, because of a drug, right, turned, into a pigeon, and he has to team up with, this whiz kids to, fight crime, whatever. And in its third weekend, it pulled in 5.1 million, drop off about 50% from the previous weekend, and, domestically, it pulled in about 55 million. It grossed 55 million, and an additional 61 million overseas for a worldwide total of 115 million. I don't expect this movie to be that expensive. I mean, probably somewhere in the 70 to 80 million range. And so far, it's doing okay at the box office. All right, so that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the wide releases this weekend, and we're gonna have 2: Bad Boys for Life, which is the third Bad Boys movie, and Dolittle, which is a reboot of Dr. Dolittle, about a scientist who could speak to animals. Let's start off with Bad Boys for Life. Like I said, this is the third Bad Boys movie, I believe, and they already begun, I guess, pre-production on Bad Boys 4 without knowing how well this movie will do, but we'll see how well this movie will do. I mean, this is a movie that has a reported budget of about 90 million or so less than the previous Bad Boys, right? Bad Boys 2. So Bad Boys 2 had a 130 million budget, right? But that was with Michael Bay. This one is directed by Adil Ariba and Bali Fala. I'm butchering the names, I know, but you can look them up. What I'm trying to say is Bad Boys for Life is not directed by Michael Bay, but Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, as well as Joe Plantano, returns to star, to reprise their role, and Vanessa Hudgens, is joining them. Alright, so there are no reviews for this movie yet, and if you've seen the trailer, right, it just looked like standard action fare right there. And I don't know if Martin Lawrence and Will Smith are able to pull in their fans right now, because Will Smith's movies, right now, are not doing that well compared to his previous movies, right? To his big blockbusters. And Martin Lawrence has been out of the picture, so to speak, for a while. And, the previous Bad Boys movie was back in 2003, right? So now in 2020, we're getting Bad Boys 3. So who knows if fans of Bad Boys will turn out for this. They're all grown up, right? Will they catch this movie in theater? So that's what I'm saying. It's like people might not be that nostalgic for a Bad Boy movie, right? And Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are, kind of up there in age. they're no longer the hip, men of action that they portrayed in the previous movies. But like I said, they already greenlit a sequel, Bad Boys 4, tentatively titled, right? And I guess depending on how this movie opens, they could either start production on that one, or hold off on that for a while. But I say it could do well, right? 90 million budget is a decent budget for an action movie, but it has to open well here and or do well overseas. Having said that, right, I think this movie could probably conservatively, given the names and the recognition of the franchise, I think this movie could conservatively open somewhere in the 20 to 25 million range this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if it opened somewhere in the 30s. All right, let's move on to Dolittle. Like I said, it is sort of a reboot of the, Dr. Dolittle movies, except this one, it's more of a reimagining. This movie stars Robert Downey Jr., featuring the voices of Antonio Banderas, Michael Sheen, Jim Broadbent, John Cena, Octavia Spencer, Ralph Fiennes, Selena Gomez, on and on. Some famous names lending their voices for this one here. So this movie takes place during sometime in the 1800s, colonial times, right? So Dolittle, as this scientist, must embark on a voyage, across an ocean to this mystical island to find a cure for an illness that afflicted the princess of England or something like that, right? Laden with special effects, right? Talking animals. So as you can see, it's a family film. There's something for the adults and a lot of things for the children. And these movies tend to do well, right? Animals or animals or a thing, with children and adults. And obviously Robert Downey Jr. Has been doing very well at the box office, in the Marvel movies. But this is one of his movies that is outside, of his role as Iron Man. So we'll see how that goes, right? Having said that, like I said, it's a family film. Family films tend to open well, right? Especially with a name like Robert Downey Jr. anchoring the movie. And such, I think this movie could probably have an opening somewhere in the 25 to 30 million range. It's possible that it could open higher, but going with 25 to 30. All right, so that's it for this week's podcast. Tune in next time to see how I did. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.